Hey, there you are, folks. Paying it forward creates results. Stick with me. I'll go over some of my results with you so you can actually see what I'm talking about. Hey, how you doing? I don't know if you can hear it or not, or if the noise cancellation takes it out, but I got some really cool flamenco music in the background, and I totally dig it. So I wanted to come to you today with kind of a inspirational message, but it's for me, it's a celebration because I really dove into the idea of paying it forward. I've I've always, from a corporate standpoint, I've always felt generous. It sounds like a weird thing to say, but I really enjoy meeting people, helping people, finding out what the gaps are, and maybe pointing out a possible solution or the next stepping stone in a process. In fact, when the Y, they call it the Y Academy. Is it the Y Academy with Daniel Dominguez? Uh, they have the YOS. When he did the evaluation of me, he was like, well, dude, you're based on gaining people's trust and finding a better way. Like those are two of my three things, right? And so when we think about two of those three things being find a better way and gaining trust, it's just naturally wired into me that I want to help people problem solve. I want to help people get to the next step of whatever their challenge is. So if we take that natural feeling and we take the idea that I wrote about in Action Leadership from the Edge, it just makes sense that paying it forward is a kind of a natural process for me. So it might not be natural for you. So that's why I'm bringing it up the way that I am. I want to tell you that paying it forward creates results. So, as some of you may know, we just moved from California to Kansas. Right away, I got involved with an organization, not a company, an organization called Startup Hutch. Oh, commercials. So let's roll that volume back. You don't need to hear commercials. And so this organization, Startup Hutch, gets together with other entrepreneurs in the area of Hutchinson, Kansas, and they have like networking groups and courses and all kinds of things that they do. And so I started networking with Jackson Swear and Chris down at his office. And, I was on their podcast in town talking about how awesome it was to move to Hutchinson and to get used to the community and the awesome businesses and the business owners and the entrepreneurs. They have a meetup that they do. It's the third Tuesday of every month. And so I go, and it's a date night. I take my wife. We have a blast. So we go, we meet people, we shake hands, we share a couple of adult beverages, and we just have a good time meeting other business owners in the space. And last night while I was there, Chris, the gentleman that does the podcast stuff, his audio, by the way, my audio is not as good. Chris is an audio engineer. He helps people produce really high quality podcasts here in town. And so Chris was talking to me last night, and super, super flattering. He was like, Kurt, what I really like about you, man, is the energy you brought to town. Now imagine someone telling you that. Imagine you move to a new neighborhood and one of the business leaders in town comes up to you and says, man, what I really love about you is the positive energy that you brought to town when you got here. Like, talk about a compliment. And so, with as much humility as possible, I'm like, dude, I really appreciate your kind words. Thanks for that. And he just went on, he said, no, you're always willing to help folks. He's like, I see you at all the events, which is true because I go to as many events as I can. In fact, just Monday, I was at a all day training course for entrepreneurs at the community college. And this is what I mean by paying it forward. So I'm at the event and I'm seeing the speakers speak, and they're doing a great job. But I immediately thought, how can I get plugged into this? How can I become, a volunteer speaker at the community college and tell people about the benefits of WordPress and the benefits of networking and the benefits of, and sure enough, they have a form and they have a process. And I asked the question and it was easy to get plugged in. And so Chris saw that and he was like, dude, you volunteered at the high school, you're volunteering at the community college, you're running the WordPress meetup here in town. He's like, the idea that you bring this positivity to our community, it doesn't go unnoticed. And that to me is huge compliment, really puts my head up there. And I see some folks signing in now. So if you missed the opening here in this live, I'm talking about the benefits of paying it forward. And I wanted to come with receipts. I wanted to say, if that's not how you're naturally wired, if you're not naturally wired for what paying it forward looks like, or what that mojo is, I wanted to try and give you some real life examples and kind of give you the receipts of why it's so important. See, for me, it's how I'm naturally wired. So I do it, and it almost looks like when I pay it forward, it's like I'm doing it for me, right? So it's actually, it feels almost selfish. But when I started Manana No Mas back up in 2020, and realized that I had to make this a business, I had to make a decision on how I was going to grow that business. How was I going to go from, almost a dead stop to a full sprint? And I realized for me, I'm not a pay-per-click ad guy. I'm not a Facebook guy. I'm not I'm a connections person. I like to network. I like to connect. I like to understand a project before I bid on a project. And so because of that, I knew I was getting into the long game. I knew I was getting into how do I grow this over time. When I think about the jobs that Manana No Mas as an agency has been invited to bid on just this year, just in 2024, I'm blown away because we're getting invited to bid on jobs. We're getting invited to bid on projects I honestly never thought we'd get the opportunity for. For instance, we just bid on a job with the Department of Veteran Affairs. There's a company that does charging equipment for electric vehicles. We got invited to bid on that. We're being invited to much larger rooms than we would have been invited before. And if you were around last week or 2 weeks ago, you would have seen me going live and announcing that we're offering, actual like fractional CMO services to corporations that really don't want to budget that full-time staff for that. But our agency has grown enough where we can say, oh, do you need graphic assistants? Do you need a style guide? Do you need a branding guide? Do you need someone to run events for you? Do you need, we can do all that right through Manana No Mas now. Because we've paid it forward and we've built relationships that, relationships generate transactions. So I don't focus on the transaction. I focus on the relationship. The relationship generates the transactions. Okay. But if I focus solely on transactions, I'm not being true to myself. And I feel like the client can recognize it. And so I need to be true to myself, which for me, like I said, I'm naturally wired for this paying it forward kind of strategy. And it just seems to work. Now, I promised I'd come at you with a few receipts, but I do see people coming into the live. So folks, if you want, please tell me, who you are, where you're coming in from, put a comment in the bottom. If you have any questions or any comments about what I'm talking about today, I would love, to engage with you and kind of have that conversation. But let me just kind of give you a little something here. I have a client, and I built them a website, and then I noticed that they were posting events in like an Eventbrite kind of tool, but we have the ability to put events in the site. And so what I did was I signed into their website for them, and I made just a quick screen share video that said, hey, I got this email from you, from your CRM announcing this event, and you use this tool. If that's your goal, that's fine. But you also have the ability to do this within your own website, sell tickets and do all that. Like, we built this as part of your website. I said, so let me show you how to duplicate this event in your own tool. And I just sent that to him. What'd that take? 7-8 minutes, right? And what I get is, you're awesome. Thanks, Kurt. Exclamation points everywhere, right? So you're awesome. Thanks, Kurt. We'll have a look and get to work. Thanks again. And then, of course, they put in their name and all of that. We got another one, right? I put felt inspired. So I sent another video to a different client, and the response I get is, Kurt, you're the sweetest man. How would you like to open an email that says that, right? Kurt, you're the sweetest man. Thank you. I've been down with the flu this week, and this video picked me up so much. We love working with you too. And then, of course, she signed the email. So, right there's 2 receipts, right? And those came from email kind of exchanges where I'd sent somebody a video, a screen share of something. And so this next one is customers that were trying to figure out kind of the strategy on using an LMS, but to do live workshops. And so what I get from this gentleman is thank you, exclamation point. So it's all capitals, right? He's shouting at me, thank you. This is a big help. Such insightful information flows from your massive brain. Right? So such insightful information flows from your massive brain. This will help me in my next steps and save me a lot of time fumbling around. Folks, that's my goal. Like, I talk to a lot of business owners that might know their business well or might know their processes well at their business. But when it comes to representing those processes online for their clients, from a user experience standpoint, there's so much stuff out there that they see this, they see this, they see this, they see this, they get that shiny object syndrome. And next thing you know, they're knee deep in decisions they can't even fathom. And so because my specialty is working online and being a good project manager, I'm able to say, hey, out of the 10 or 15 tools that I really like in WordPress, this will get you here. We'll do this. We'll integrate that. And now your user experience should flow consistently. Like your user experience should be much more streamlined than how you imagined it. And this is how we'll get where we need to go. Again, I've got 20 years experience on it. So I'm bringing that value to the conversation. And that's the receipt is, thank you. This is a big help. You've saved me a lot of time and fumbling around. That to me, that's exactly what I want to see. I've got another receipt here. Now, this one, folks were hosting videos on YouTube for corporate purposes. And then they were looking at, did they want to move to bunny.net? Did they want to move to Vimeo, Wistia, all these kinds of things? And what they recognized was their budget was going to balloon, right? Because YouTube's free, but sometimes you're not looking for YouTube in a corporate sense. Sometimes you're looking for a private way to host your private videos that you want to put into a private website and that you want to manage. And so I'd given these guys some advice on a lifetime video hosting source that I use. These are customers of mine. And so I gave them the advice on that and they signed up for it. They said, hey, we're going to sign up. Boom. This is such a big help. Thank you. So they were like happy about that. But then it occurred to me, whenever you sign up for something that's different, there's a learning curve, right? So yeah, I know how YouTube works. I kind of know how Vimeo works. I'm not a Wistia person. I really don't know how Wistia works. In this case, I sent them to a lifetime hosting deal, and I'm very familiar with it. And so I took about 8 or 9 minutes of my time, and I made a video tutorial of me using my own account. But like, this is where I put the folders. This is where I put the video content. This is how I control the look of the player. This is where you get the share links. This is where you get the embed codes. Basically just here's a tour so you guys don't have to spend 3 hours figuring out how to use it. You got a 10-minute video to show you how to use it. And so I get an email from one of the partners in this organization. And again, he's shouting, wow, right? So, wow, that's some extra mile attention right there. And then he put Kurt, 5 stars, our solar system, 1 star, and talk about perception. And again, some of you might watch this and go, why is Kurt bragging like this? I just want to share with you. I want to bring the receipts. When I say that paying it forward creates results, I want to bring the receipts to you so that you're going, oh, now I get it, right? There's a lot of folks that don't do business this way. And I just want to try and bring it home for some folks to be like, hey, this is how you do it. When you build relationships like this. So I'm getting an email that says, wow, Kurt's 5 stars and the solar system's just 1 star. Thanks for going the extra mile. Do you think that client is shopping for another digital marketing source? Do you think that client's looking for someone else to come and build them their next website? Do you think that customer is looking to go to somebody else to get advice on tech products? I would say no, right? I read these emails, I see these receipts come in, and I see our business growing, and I say we're on the right path. This is beginning to work. All right. My next receipt is it's partners. Again, it's a part. This is a male female partner kind of situation. We had migrated their website, changed a couple of things as far as tools went from one learning management system to another learning management system. And for all intensive purposes, the project was done. I just wanted to make sure that they were comfortable, right? And so when you finish a project like this, no matter how big or small, when you finish a project like this, you want to make sure the customer's actually happy with the work, right? So you want to follow up with people. So I sent a follow-up email and I was like, hey, don't worry, there's no invoices outstanding or anything crazy like that. I just want to make sure you guys are good and see if you need anything. And so, I got a, hi, Kurt, what a cool email. Thank you. It's been a huge adventure since redeveloping our system together, and doing the housework like that on a Sunday is always rewarding. Now, this was after church that I sent the email. It says, you pop up in conversations all the time around here. It's a good thing. We'd love to figure out a way to involve you in our next project as well. Thank you for everything. Boom, sign it out. This is just an example of how paying it forward works. So the project's done. I got my money. They could be gone, right? But you pay it forward. You follow up. You send, for instance, there's an update in the software. So I'll say, hey, there's a new feature that's been added to this software. If you haven't seen this release yet, know that your students have this extra tool that they can use. And when you send that kind of information to your clients, you're just keeping them informed, you're keeping them knowledge, you're paying it forward, and it always comes back. This other one, I'm really tempted just to do a screen share on it because she's hilarious, but she writes, woohoo, woohoo, you are legendary. Thank you. And it's exclamation points all over the place. She's a very expressive person. Now, I've gotten these emails for a while. I've had, let me get back to my right screen here. I've gotten these emails for a while, but lately they're coming in fast and furious. And that's just a sampling of the receipts that I have in my email inbox right now. Again, it's not to brag and pat myself on the back in this case. What I'm trying to express is if we focus more on the relationship and less on the transactions, we're going to get the transactions anyway. And now I want you to think about this. In the time that I was laid off from Suzuki and have regrown Mañana No Mas, so from 2020 to 2024, I've gone from 1,200 connections on LinkedIn to almost 10,000. And that's with trimming off the fat from the people that don't communicate. Okay. Out of those 10,000 people, I have spoken to probably about 3,000 of them, right? Because I entertain the idea of, hey, let's have a 15-minute get to know each other thing. That's another way of paying it forward. I'm not scheduling meetings to hard sell them on doing a new web project, right? What are the chances that everyone I talk to today needs a new website today, right? Slim. Very, very slim. I recognize that. So I know that the work I put into branding and communicating and making connections with people is not for today's paycheck. I know that I'm working for the paycheck that's coming a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, right? And that's part of that paying it forward mentality. In fact, if I look in my LinkedIn messaging just from today, and I'll open that tab over here, I did a meeting with a gentleman yesterday, and he's from out of country. Right. So I'll still meet with people. You're in country, you're out of country, you're, offshore, virtual assistant, whatever. Like, let's have that conversation and see where it's going to go. And this is where this particular conversation went. He writes, hey, Kurt, just had to shoot a quick message to say how much I enjoyed our virtual coffee catch up yesterday. Your journey at Ducati was hands down my favorite part of our chat, as I'm a big fan of Ducati bikes. I'm still buzzing from all the insights and ideas we bounced around. And we did. We talked about a lot of different things that we could do together. And we talked a lot about our mentality of how we build business. Okay. So we did. Now all this happened in, half an hour. So if you ever need a hand with custom web or app development, I'm your guy. But seriously, and this is the receipt from where we were yesterday. But seriously, your dynamic personality and open networking mindset are truly inspiring. I can already see so many ways we could turn around, from tackling complex WordPress tasks to you being the front face in your region. Remember, they're offshore, right? I'm here in America. English is my native language. I'm really skilled at project management. And so what this gentleman is recognizing is, wait a minute, we could funnel some of our American work through Kurt, as the face of it. He could be the project manager. We still get to do the labor, the building, right? They still get their part. I get a piece of the pie, and the customer's going to be happier. Like, that's kind of that whole process that came out of yesterday's conversation, but it wasn't a sales call. It was literally a, hey, I just want to get to know you call. Okay. It says, let's keep the momentum going. Look forward to more laughs and insightful chats in the future. And we did. We had a good time talking. You see, I would not have known that this person was a fan of motorcycles unless I would have gotten on that call yesterday and had that chat. We got a comment. James says hello. James is another person I had a chat with. Look at that. So James Lau, he is on post status. He is doing a wonderful job of launching his own agency. And he's also involved in WordPress at an organizational level, which is really, really cool. James, shout out to you, man. So when I bring you these receipts, when I read off a couple of these emails, and I read off, this LinkedIn message that's just from this morning, again, I want to tell you, these are the steps that I have taken to network, to brand, to expand. I went from, yeah, I can build your website for $500 to, yeah, I would love to bid on that project for $57,000. And that happened, I think. Some people would say, oh my God, but it took you 4 years. It took you 15 years. I mean, I started Mañana No Mas in 2008. So technically you could say, well, it's 15 years. Okay. Is it a long time? Yeah. Are we bidding on really good projects right now? Yeah. I bid on a project at the beginning of the year that was over $300,000. I was amazed that I got invited into the conversation. And here's the weirdest thing for me. Imposter syndrome takes over, and I'm thinking, I am not even supposed to be in this room. How am I qualified to bid on this job that's over $300,000? But at the end of the bidding process and at the end of the discovery calls, what I got was an email that thanked me for my openness, my information, my ability to interact, right, and kind of bring the room together. And they're actually taking my presentation and using my presentation for the official RFQ that's going to go out. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with RFI versus RFQ, but this was an RFI session, request for information. And then they take the information they gather and they form a quote, request for quote. And then that's what they bid out to get the job done. So imagine if you're the person that gives the information and they tell you, this was so good, we're going to use this presentation to build the quote. What that is that's hidden language, right? That's saying we're building our RFQ specifically for you to bid on because we want to work with you. Okay. So this was a government contract, so they have to do things in certain ways. That's the paying it forward methodology. There's I got a job to do. I'm going to get the job done, but I'm going to knock this out. They want a proposal, by gum, I'm going to give them a proposal. Boom, here you go. Right. Or there's the way to pay it forward. Hey, let's have a quick conversation. Let's jump on and do a deeper needs assessment here. Let's take a look at some other tools that you haven't brought up, or let's take a look at some other strategies to streamline this and maybe reduce your costs. Let's take a look at this, and this. And when you perform the task with the best result for the client in mind, rather than the best result for your wallet in mind, your wallet tends to get fatter as a side effect, right? Just trying to say it that way. Mr. Panzer Dragoon, he's back. All right. So the in-person human connection is so powerful. Man, you nailed that. Earlier in this live, I was talking about these networking things that I do with Startup Hutch and with the WordPress meetups. When I started the WordPress meetups, I had a choice. I could have gone virtual and done Zoom calls and had people calling in from all over the country. Could have done that. I decided to go with in-person WordPress meetups, and we actually got sponsored by a local brewery, which is amazing because now I get to go have, microbrewed IPAs and talk about WordPress at the same time. I mean, that's bomb. And so we set it up that way. So from an exposure perspective, maybe I'm only getting 3, 4, 5 people in a room at a time. But from that interpersonal connection, I think we're getting so much more. Another example of the WordPress meetups. Last night, I'm at the Entrepreneurs Meetup, and someone was talking about they tried WordPress. They didn't think it really worked for them. They couldn't figure it out. They went to a Shopify store, but they feel like they're getting ripped off. And they are getting ripped off because they set up all these different layers of their payment gateway. Everyone's taking a piece of it. And these poor folks are probably paying 10 or 11% on every transaction to get something done. Now, is that normal? That's not normal. They're in a different industry. There's, all kinds of things. But I said, hey, let's just come to the WordPress meetup, because they were like, we don't have the funding. We don't, we've already lost. I said, just come to the WordPress meetup. We'll take a look at it. They're free, and any skill levels invited. We can talk about your situation. We can maybe look at some answers. If it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, that's fine too. And what I got from that was, oh, Kurt, I don't want to waste your time. This is what you do for a living. I don't want to, encroach. Dude, the WordPress meetup is free. Just because I volunteer and run that for the community doesn't mean you're taking advantage of me. I want people to come and ask questions. I want the interactivity. I'm trying to be an ambassador for the platform here in town. So come to the meeting. Don't worry about wasting my time or asking me for free information. That's what that's for. Now, if I show you all the magic behind the curtain and I show you how everything works, and this could very well be a do-it-yourself project for you, but you just don't want to do it yourself and you want to hire me, we can have that conversation. I said, but come to the meeting, at least get exposed to what it is we do, how it can work, and how it can kind of restore your budget where it needs to be. Imagine if they go from paying 10 or 11% per transaction to 3% per transaction, and not having to pay, transaction fees to a middleman on top of that. And then imagine if they pay like $10 or $15 or even $20 a month for hosting instead of $75 a month to rent space on a platform that they're using, right? So those kinds of conversations are ways of paying it forward. And I stress this again. I have focused so hard on this long game, on this paying it forward, on this adding value to almost any conversation I can possibly get into, that to see the people that I am currently bidding for, the jobs that I'm getting invited to bid for, the associations that people are inviting me to do, lift the curtain. You like that? Dude, that is a cool play right there. I'll put that one on screen. James, I'll lift the curtain. Yeah, that's brilliant the way he spelled that. Share the wealth and knowledge. Dude, there are no secrets. And so, when I was teaching people at Ducati, they say, oh my God, I never had a class like this. This class is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And it was great to hear it. It was really good to hear it. But I had to tell folks, I didn't make this up. I didn't invent this. I didn't come up with this. It's information that anyone can gather. I just kind of put it together and packaged it in a different way. I presented it in a way that made more sense so that you went to your store and you leveraged it and you made more money, right? But I didn't invent it. And I feel that way with WordPress. I feel like in the WordPress space, online in general, there's just so many options. There's so many tools. There's so many things. I mean, WordPress has over 60,000 tools inside the repository. And so people coming in that don't have the experience look at that library of stuff And they go, oh my goodness, and then you start just plugging in anything, trying to, I want my website to do this and do that and do the other thing. And you end up with a hot mess. And so with the 20 years of experience of me working in WordPress, I'm able to, take a look at those 60,000 plugins and go, well, here's the 18 to 20 that I'm going to play with and work with my clients, and build them tools that'll get to a net result. And because I bring that and the openness and that conversation and that connection to the transaction, remember, I focus on the relationship first, transaction second. The transactions are naturally growing and the invitations for bigger bids are coming. And so I just want to inspire folks. I think I've gone long enough. I've gone like 30 minutes here on this live. So I probably didn't mean to go that long, but I'm just super inspired by it. In the last week, those receipts that I read earlier, those emails pouring in, and then what was said to me last night at the networking thing, it's, a confirmation bias, right? It's telling me that the long game is working. Adding value to people at every turn is working. Pardon me. I got a lot of that through my John Maxwell training, right? Because the John Maxwell, I think, would they call that the motto, right? Is add value to everybody you can, right? How can you add value to as many people as possible? And I find that when you are open and you share your knowledge freely and you add value to people, those people want to reciprocate. They want to come back. And so, again, not everybody I talk to is ready for a web package. Not everyone I talk to is ready for a public speaker. Not everybody I talk to is, opening their doors for business consulting right now. But when they see the lives and when they run into me at the networking events, or when they see the courses that I teach, they're like, when we're ready, that Kurt guy's got the answers. And it's taken a few years, okay? But now the opportunities are beginning to pour in. And I wanted to inspire some folks that if you're not naturally built for this, try and find a way to remind yourself, or to come up with some kind of mnemonic, right? A rubber band on your wrist or something. When you're talking with people in a business sense, just ask yourself, how did I add value in this today? How did I bring value to this conversation? How did I bring value to this email I'm sending? Somebody once told me, and it's not even somebody I like, that's the funny part. Somebody once told me that my emails were too short. They were too short and too direct. I'm a very direct communicator. And so I'm a bullet point kind of person, especially on email, right? So it was normal for me to address an email and say, like, it's for James's case, right? I would write James Lau, bam, 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 subject, let's get it done, bam. And I'd write James, right? And I would just write, I've been thinking about it. This is what we need to do. A, this, B, that, C, boom, D, the other. And then I write, let me know when we got this nailed, right? Boom, Kurt. And I'd send it. And I thought that's how you communicated. Now, this was years ago. And I would wonder why people wouldn't respond to me, or that people would respond in weird ways. And you can see in person, I communicate a little differently. But in writing, I was very direct. In fact, when I published my first book was like less than 100 pages, because it was like, well, everything I needed to say is in the book. But I didn't bring the stories. I didn't bring the narrative. I didn't bring the influential words to the product. And so somebody, again, I didn't even like him. I still don't like him. But he gave me this advice. He said, Kurt, nobody wants to read your emails because you're a jerk. And I was like, what? And he goes, you're a jerk. You need to ask people, like, good morning, good afternoon, how are you? I hope you're well. Put a nicety at the front of it, right? And then maybe a little narrative. I've been thinking about it. This is what I did, a little bit. And then if you want to put your bullet points in, put them in, but then put in a nice paragraph at the end to kind of wrap it up, so that you give people that feel-good feeling, like it's part of a conversation and not a command. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't realize that. I thought I was just giving people the information they needed. And he's like, no. And so, as crazy as it sounds, I was like, I got to figure out a way to make these emails easier to read. It's a contradiction to me, because I was like, my emails before were super easy to read. Do these 5 things. How much easier could that be? but I had to make it easier to digest. So, good morning. How are you? Hope you're well. Blah, blah, blah. It's been a while since we talked. Blah, 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 blah. And then here's your bullet points. And then, hey, I hope that you are in agreement with this. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Blah, 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 blah. Here's my link if you want to schedule a quick meeting. Have a great day. Kurt. Boom. That little piece of information has changed the entire way that people respond to me in writing via email. And you see, it's those types of things. It's that type of impact I'm hoping to have with you today on this idea of paying it forward and creating those results. Because if you pay it forward for a little bit of time and you don't see results right away, you make up, Kurt's full of it. That doesn't work. You got to understand it's a long game. And it's a transition. It is a transition from being a bullet point kind of person to a relationships kind of person, right? But the more that you can focus on the relationships and less on the transactions, the more those transactions will grow and occur. I promise you that's going to work. And I brought the receipts today to express to you how I know that it's true. And with that, folks, I'm going to hit you with my thank you screen, and I will see you some other time. James and Mr. Panzer Dragoon, it was great to see you, and have yourselves a wonderful day. Oh, and if you see the replay, you can still put in a comment. It'll come to me. I'll get back to you. Have a great day.